You're listening to Brainbuster Radio.
Welcome to Everything Pro Wrestling. Everything Pro Wrestling is a show by the fans, for the fans. And here's your host, Conrad Kushman.
This is your X Division champion, the Golden Jaw, Jake Chris. You're listening to Brainbuster Radio.
Hey, it's Conrad Kushman, and we have a very special episode of Everything Pro Wrestling for you today. We will have the man, the myth, the podfather, Conrad Thompson on the podcast today. But before we get into that, guys, I do have to let you know about some very cool things that we will have down in the description box. We have Wrestling Resurgence video on demand site. I have a link for that. And if you use the code BrainBuster15, you get 15% off, and you guys can watch all of their amazing content on there. And if you use the exact same code, BrainBuster with the ER, 15, you can get 15% off your Wrestling Resurgence merch. I have a link down there as well. And don't forget, we have 10% off fourcornerscards.com. You guys can go there, get your trading cards for independent pro wrestling, and you guys can get 10% off by using the code BBRadio10. Enough of me talking. Let's get into the interview with Conrad Thompson. Folks, welcome to Everything Pro Wrestling. Everything Pro Wrestling is a show by the fans, for the fans. And I am your host, Conrad Kushman. And if you are listening to me, you know it's Saturday. We are on Brainbuster Radio. And with me today, I have a very special guest. We are here with the Podfather himself, Conrad Thompson. Conrad, how are you, good sir?
Well, I can't believe I'm talking to another Conrad. This might actually be a first.
Man, it took me a long time in life to find another person with that name. But thank God for Twitter. I found so many people with the same name. I've even messaged you back and forth on there. I always say I'm the best Conrad in podcasting, but I got to give it up to you, brother. You have lots of great shows, and you are a very, very busy man these days.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, man. Yeah, I'm not having trouble keeping busy, that's for sure.
All right, man. Conrad, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to me. And I've got some questions for you that I think a lot of the people want to hear. I'm not going to ask you these crap questions that people want to ask over and over and over again. I kind of want to ask you some different things, something that's a little bit thought-provoking. And I want you just to be laid back, have some fun with this, man. First and foremost, is there any chance of seeing a return on Something Else to Wrestle With?
Yeah, there's always a chance. Is it going to happen anytime soon? No. You know, WWE's busier than ever, which means Bruce is busier than ever with them adding NXT to Wednesdays and moving SmackDown to Fox. He's got more on his plate than he can say grace over right now. So never say never, but not in the immediate future.
Understandable. Now, would you feel different about doing it with someone like Eric Bischoff, per se, or Tony Schiavone, if they asked them to come on and do it?
Well, that's not going to happen. You know, the name of the show is Something Else to Wrestle. It's a spinoff of me and Bruce, and Tony works for AEW. So if we have another video show on the network, it'll be with Bruce.
Okay. Excellent. Next question, Conrad. I have been eager to ask this one, and hopefully I can get something out of you. Conrad, do you have any new details about the Arn Show with AA Arn Anderson that you could share with the people?
Yeah, we set his studio up today with a little help from our friend Tony Schiavone, and Arn is now all set and live. We're going to try to put together our first sort of pilot episode next week, and we hope to debut on Westwood 1 in the last week of the month. So if I were a betting man, I would bet on September 24th, but we'll see how next week goes.
Interesting. Is there a subject for that podcast that you're looking forward to, or a couple of them?
Oh, there's tons of good stuff. You know, I want to talk about, you know, what led to them leaving Crockett to go to the WWF in 1989. And, of course, we'll talk about the return and why Tully wasn't with him and what he thought about Paul Roma. And, of course, the famous My Spot promo and wrestling Ric Flair and the incident with Sid and that's all the in-ring stuff, but there's so much good stuff behind the scenes that happened in the WWE that he was a big part of. I think fans are in for a real treat when the Arn Show starts. And if I were you, I would follow us on Twitter at the Arn Show, and you'll be up to breast on not just the debut, but all the follow-up topics and how to participate in the show and ask questions on the show. And it should be a good time. So throw it a follow. The follow is free, as is the download. The Arn Show on Twitter is the handle to look for.
You already know I'm on it. And it's funny, today at work, I was listening to your podcast, the Arn Anderson one with Eric Bischoff. And absolutely, anytime I hear that promo that you brought up, I can just see it like unfolding in front of my eyes on Nitro. I can see Ric Flair crying in the background, and the My Spot promo, just a thing of beauty, man. I give you guys credit. That was one of my favorite episodes that you guys have done.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think Arn Anderson promos, are really are their own masterclass onto themselves. The great stuff that he did with the Horsemen back on TBS, and then of course all the stuff we saw on Nitro. The hits just kept coming, man. Whether you were talking about giving a spot to Kurt Hennig or bringing Ric Flair back the following year in Greenville after Flair had been at odds with Bischoff for the better part of a year. So many classic moments in wrestling history are really hinged on an Arn Anderson promo, and I think he's one of the more underrated workers, and his career is going to be celebrated and highlighted in a big way on the new Arn Show.
I hear you on that, Conrad. Now, my third question is going to be here. I was shocked to see a Starrcast IV. It was announced, and every year I feel like since the first one, you seem like you are done with this. It is not happening again. It made you want to pull your hair out, but every year you do it again and it gets better. It's kind of like I put the family, because the word mafia doesn't exist. They keep pulling you back in. So what does Starrcast mean to you if it keeps bringing you back in like that?
Well, I really didn't have an intention of doing 4. I knew after 1 that I wanted to do another one day, and then the opportunity presented itself with AEW, and I signed up for 2 and 3 at the same time. But I thought that would be it, and then as 3 came to a close, I was requested to do Starrcast 4, and I tried to say, let me be a team player. Let me figure out how to make this work. I came up with an idea that I got excited about, and we haven't announced that yet. So I can't say too much about it, but I was really excited about the idea and thought, man, this is the town to do it in Baltimore. Let me see if I can find space. And the weekend of Starrcast 3, I started working on securing space. I mean, it really was that last minute. And then we put tickets on sale just a few days after Starrcast 3, and we're excited to be coming to Baltimore. We're going to have a couple of events at Jimmy's Famous Seafood that Thursday and that Sunday. But really, the wrestling world is going to descend upon Baltimore that Friday and Saturday, not only for Starrcast 4, but for AEW's Full Gear. It should be one hell of a weekend with Cody and Jericho on top, and somewhere in the mix, Moxley and Omega. Should be quite the show.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that show, and I absolutely love the whole Starrcast event. We had Queen from Brainbuster Radio. She was actually out there just checking out everything, and maybe one day we could hope to be out there with you guys. Now, do you have any hints for Starrcast 4? Because when I see that logo, it gives me that nostalgia feel of WCW. I even get a little bit of that Four Horsemen feel. I got the 4 fingers up right now if you guys are wondering. But is any hints for what's gonna happen at Starrcast 4?
Not yet, but I will say that we're going to start rolling out talent announcements next week. We've got a couple of big ones in our back pocket that we're excited to announce, and this will be a themed Starrcast for sure. The first one felt like Woodstock. The second one was all about Vegas. Chicago was all about CM Punk, and this will have its own sort of theme, and I'm excited for, to see the reaction. Should be a fun week next week if you're a fan of Starrcast and plan to be in Baltimore.
All right. Well, Conrad, I got to bring up some old things here that I wanted to ask you about. And this is from other people who just wanted to know about this stuff. How did it feel when The Undertaker was pulled from Starrcast? Were you upset? Did you see something like this possibly coming?
No, of course not. We had a signed contract. I already paid the deposit. So, when you sign a contract and pay a deposit, you don't anticipate it not happening. So, of course, it's disappointing. I mean, I don't know what else I'm supposed to say there, but yeah, we went to great efforts and great lengths to try to secure him, and we're really excited to put the deal together. And then when it fell apart, obviously we were disappointed, but it kind of is what it is.
Yeah, it's just a difficult kind of position that puts you guys in, because I was really hyped for that lineup, but even with everything that happened, you guys still found a way to make that show must see. And it felt like that one just had hurdle after hurdle after hurdle that you guys had to deal with, but you guys found a way to get through it, and we're at Starrcast IV now, so you're obviously doing something right when it comes to this. My next question for you is, what advice would you have for the WWE podcast that they are potentially starting up? Do you have any advice for them doing that?
No, have fun. Listen, I don't think they're going to approach podcasting the way a traditional podcasting company would. They have so many things to sell and to promote. They don't really need outside advertising. I'm sure it wouldn't be the worst idea, and maybe it's a great way to offer added value to people who are on air. But I suspect that's what it would be, is that if you buy, a spot package on air, on television, whether it's cable or broadcast through the new SmackDown initiative on Fox, I suspect they'll sprinkle some in on those podcasts as just sort of added value. But by and large, I expect it to be a vehicle to sell tickets and to sell subscriptions to for the network, and of course merchandise. And I just think it's going to be vertically integrated to sell more WWE content.
Bruh. Pardon my interruption to this wonderful interview that we're having with Conrad Thompson, but I do have to get a quick word with our sponsors in, and then we'll get right back into this interview with Conrad. Also, guys, do me a favor. Make sure that you guys subscribe to Brainbuster Radio and leave us a review. Hopefully it's a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening to us on, guys. We appreciate it. Keep up the great work, and we'll be right back with the rest of that interview with Conrad Thompson.
Hey everyone, David Conrad here, owner of the Gorilla Position Wrestle Store. We're an online store headquartered in San Antonio, Texas, bringing you the best and original wrestling shirts, accessories, collectibles, and more. We're glad to be partnering with Brainbuster Radio, and to thank them and to thank you, we're offering 10% off all purchases with the coupon code BRAINBUSTA. That's BRAINBUSTA. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under @GPWrestleStore, or check out our website, www.gpwrestlestore.com. Remember, when you want the best wrestling experience, you gotta hang out in Gorilla Position.
Everything Pro Wrestling, it's your boys from the Everything College Basketball Podcast and Facebook group. I'm Josh Burton, letting you all know that if you like the college game, that there's only one spot to come find all you need to know.
Yep, Josh, Peyton, and myself, Tyler. We are the three voices of ECB podcast and Facebook group. Peyton, tell them where they can find us and listen to us at.
Well, Tyler, you can find us on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and all other podcast hosting sites. Also, go join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups like Everything College Basketball. So if you want everything you need to know about the collegiate game or have a passion for it, there's only one spot that you need to check out on a weekly basis or a daily basis with the Facebook group. That's Everything College Basketball. Now let's get back to Conrad informing you on everything pro wrestling and the workings around it.
Brother.
Are you tired of the same old pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 4,000 hours of the best pro wrestling events from over 110 of the biggest names in the industry from over 15 countries around the globe. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
Vince McMahon. Have you ever had the opportunity to meet Vince, and what's your relationship like with Vince and the WWE decision makers today as it stands?
I have a great relationship with WWE, and I've only met Vince one time, probably 2015, and it was just a brief interaction, but super nice guy, and yeah, we're not cross if that's what we're looking for.
No. But I think a lot of people often wonder, because it seems like there's like a back and forth with the relationship. Obviously, like we mentioned with the Starrcast stuff. But at the same token, when you and Conrad do the Something to Wrestle with podcast and Eric Bischoff and the watch alongs, you guys are driving those network numbers. So it's kind of got to be one of those weird relationships to where they're like, I don't like competition, but at the same time, these guys are driving people to buy the WWE network.
I don't know how I'm competition. You know, they hired my two co-hosts and gave them the most powerful jobs in the company and gave us a show on the network and promoted our shows on Twitter. And I mean, we're not competition at all. They view what I do as an asset to their company, I'm sure. And if they didn't, they would have asked the guys to stop doing the podcast, but they do. So, you know, they not only allow those guys to do the podcast, but they encourage them to do the podcast. So the whole narrative that there is some sort of back and forth or weird relationship with me and WWE is created by fans and readers online and social media. I don't have I have a great working relationship with WWE, not the opposite.
And absolutely, I can see that 100%. And I'm glad that you could clear that up for many of the people at home listening. Conrad, I want to talk to you about AEW next. AEW has come on the scene. A lot of people are excited about it. There's competition in wrestling again. Me and you grew up on a time in wrestling to where we had the Monday Night Wars and all that was going on at the same time. And now wrestling fans, to me, are starting to get to experience it again, but it's kind of different this time. What do you think are some of the biggest hurdles that AEW still has to overcome today?
I mean, they're a brand new company. I mean, the biggest hurdle is just doing your first show, and then doing your second show, and then doing your third show. You know, anybody who thinks that these guys are in competition with WWE is mistaken. That's not the approach that Tony Khan or any of the EVPs are taking. You know, Tony Khan is out here to make a profit. He wants to have a good show and put on the type of wrestling that he enjoys and he thinks other fans like himself enjoy, and he wants to turn a profit. But you know, when WCW and the WWF were going at it, they were trying to put the other one out of business. They wanted to win. Tony Khan doesn't have the approach that he wants to win. He wants to have a good show, and he wants to make a profit. And I think he'll be successful at both of those.
I think that's the best way to be successful. If you get caught up in competing against somebody, that's a recipe for disaster usually too.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Competition is good for everyone. You know, you want your show to be good, and you definitely want your show to shine. And so if that means that the performers put a little more oomph into their performance and give a little more in the ring, then yeah, that's definitely something that is good for the fans and good for the overall product. But the idea that Tony's going to somehow try to compare tax returns with Vince McMahon through the wrestling venture, I don't think that's reality. No, nobody's trying to put the other. Well, AEW is not trying to put WWE out of business. I'll say that.
Excellent. Conrad, what are some of your favorite episodes of the podcast that you have recorded, whether it be with Bruce, Eric, even Arn in the future? What are some of your favorite episodes of all time and why?
It's hard for me to say. You know, I don't really have a favorite off the top of my head just because I'm doing so many at this point that it's almost like, you know, we're on to the next week. And sometimes if you sit down and ask a wrestler, hey, what was your favorite Monday Night Raw? They all sort of run together. And I'm probably getting to that stage here with podcasting, just where it all sort of runs together. But, you know, the early episodes of Something to Wrestle were really the first foray into this format. So they're a little more memorable for me. The Sunny episode sticks out. I really enjoyed that one, and I thought that episode was tremendous. I enjoyed the $1 Million Man episode for a different reason. I think the first one that really sort of set the pace and tone for what happened when was Halloween Havoc 95, and the episode that we get the most comments on for Eric is Starrcade 97 and Slamboree 98. So those two are probably the two that, you know, people get most excited about.
Your rant on that Starrcade 97 one makes me laugh every single time. Oh my goodness. Really good stuff. And you asked some really good questions to Eric on that. You don't shy away from it. So I give you a lot of respect for that, because most of the time I think people would be nervous and say, hey, let's stay away from this question. But you go right into it with them, and you challenged him on that one. And I love that episode for it.
Thank you.
So, Conrad, what advice would you have for anybody looking to get into doing podcasting right now? I know that the market's kind of becoming flooded with a lot of people. Even myself, I feel like I started the game late. I could have did this before, but I was doing school and everything else. What would you say to someone who is thinking about getting into podcasting, especially in the wrestling genre?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. I got into podcasting as a business person, and I'm a businessman before I'm a podcaster. And I started all of my podcasts with a real business plan. Here's how we're going to develop an audience. Here's how we're going to grow it. And then here's how we're going to monetize it. And we did that through the original plan was to sell mortgages and T-shirts and eventually live shows and subscriptions, and then ads and sponsorships came along the way. But you had to get the downloads there first. And in every instance, if you're going to try to draw a crowd or grow a podcast, you've got to have the right kind of content. Not that different than if you were running a wrestling show or a radio show. You've got to have the right kind of content. And if you can create the right kind of content often enough and consistently enough, then you'll develop fans. And once you've got a certain segment of fans, then those fans are going to support you until you give them a reason not to. And we've been successful with that. So my advice would be start with the end in mind. I don't create content that is just for me. We're not doing the shows that Conrad wants to do. We're doing the shows that I think people want to listen to, that the feedback is telling me people want to listen to. And I start with the end in mind, but I do that because I'm a salesperson, and salespeople try to lead, potential prospects to a buying decision, to a yes. And the way you do that is to ask questions. So when we first started the podcast, we did polls. Hey, what do you guys want to hear? Make some suggestions. So then when they did, we would narrow it down to 4. People would vote. They felt like it was their show. They were empowered. We covered the topics they wanted, and then we let them ask questions at the end. Those little touches and the interactiveness on social media is what really was the platform that grew all of my shows. So you've got to remember that you're not making a show for yourself. If you just want to have a conversation for yourself, you don't need a microphone. You don't need Adobe Audition. You don't need to post it for the world to hear. If you're posting content for the world to hear, it needs to be something somebody gives a shit about. And that's often not just hearing yourself drone on. So I'm saying all that to say, if your goal is to grow the show, think about what everybody else wants to do. And if your goal is to have fun, then who cares what everybody else wants to do? Just talk about what you want and have fun. But the results will be different. I mean, if you're just doing it as a passion project, then talk about what you want to talk about and have fun, and don't put any pressure on yourself. But if you're trying to grow a business and you really, really want to grow your show, you first got to step outside of yourself and say, hey, what will people listen to? What are people going to be interested in? Not what do I care about, not what do I want to talk about, but what will people listen to? And then from there, your life should get a little easier.
When you were saying about growing, I definitely had a Blue Chew sponsorship in mind as soon as you said that. You guys have done tremendous things with so many different people. I've used some of the products that you promoted on air, and you guys do a great job. And I feel like it's not overkill either when you guys do it. Perfect amount of wrestling, and then with the ads. So, Conrad, I give you a lot of respect for what you do, brother.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Every now and again we do have people who say, oh, there's too many ads. But I always say compared to what? In a half-hour show on TV, you're going to get 8 minutes worth of ads. We have 8 minutes worth of ads in a 2 or 3 hour podcast, not a 30-minute show. And, we offer refunds at the door. The show's free. And if you'd like it ad-free, you can subscribe and support us on Patreon. And for just a few bucks a month, you can get it not only early, but ad-free. So we're giving people options. If you just diabolically opposed to ads, then that's okay. Support us a different way. But the shows are created for profit. I am a business person, and we do have contracts, and we do have sponsors, and as a result, we have ad reads. So we try our best to make them entertaining and make them part of the show and not make them a chore to get through. And I think for the most part, we've been successful with that.
Conrad, let me ask you one final question. Here it is. It's basically about what you'd be willing to do. Are you willing to commit to being an AEW talent or employee, or are you trying to stay away from being associated with any wrestling brands?
I'm not an AEW talent or employee, so that's something I have to worry about.
But would you be willing to commit to them? Is there something that you would say, yes, I would be willing to do this, or is it kind of just, you're Conrad Thompson, this is what I do, that's what I.
Let's just pretend for a minute. What would I be doing?
I think you could do a great job with interviewing. Maybe AEW looks to have an exclusive podcast rotating some of their talents out, and they want you to be the host of it. Is there anything that you would be willing to do with another company?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've done stuff with MLW. I've done stuff with Impact. I've done stuff with New Japan. I've done stuff with AEW. There's no one that I haven't done stuff with. So if the question is, am I opposed to working with AEW? The answer is no. But I mean, what would I even do? I mean, that's the thing. I get this question a lot, but it's like, I'm not a commentator. I don't do play-by-play. I don't, there's tons of other more well-qualified people for those type positions, not me. Now, if they want to get in the podcast game.
I'm sorry. I thought you did a great job when you hosted the events early on YouTube and everything else. I thought you did great with that. I think you're selling yourself a little short there, but
well, no, I appreciate that. But remember why I was there. I was there because I was a placeholder for JR, and everybody didn't know that at the time. But the reality is, JR was under contract to WWE, so he couldn't very well do it. Now that being said, if they needed something else like that in the future, well, they just call JR. And if I was them, I would call JR. I mean, you got him in this big contract, and he's making all this money. Why would you not just, send it to JR? So I'm not anti-working with AEW. I'm not anti-working with WWE. I don't sleep under an AEW or WWE blanket. I'm on good terms with everybody, and I have, for whatever reason, been fortunate enough to be essentially Switzerland in all this. So whereas there may be some sort of on the WWE side, I don't think it exists on the AEW side, but on the WWE side, allegedly there is like a bit of a competition with WWE and AEW, but that doesn't exist in my world. Like, as a podcaster, that doesn't affect me at all. So, if AEW wants my help on a podcast, I'd be delighted to help.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% on all that. Most of us at Brainbuster Radio seem to have the same belief of the whole WWE versus AEW thing. I think CM Punk said it best at Starrcast. Watch what you want to watch, man. It's 2019. You can go back and watch stuff. You could watch it all. We're fans. I think our job is to enjoy the pro wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you would, let's compare it to a restaurant. I don't know why you would be a brand loyalist to one restaurant over another. I eat what's, like most people, what I like and what's convenient and what's easy and what's accessible. And, sometimes you wind up eating something that you don't really enjoy and you say, what, I'm not going to try that again. I'm going to take a break from that. I think I'm done with so-and-so for a while. I think it's the same thing with this. You get to a point where you're just tired of watching old reruns, or you get to a point where you want to try a new show, and then, you're binging yourself and you watch season 1 and it was pretty good. And you watch season 2 and it wasn't quite as good. And about halfway through season 3, you say, you know what, I'm going to put this down for a little while. That's okay to enjoy wrestling or sports or books or magazines or any content that way. Watch what you enjoy and don't feel like you have to, pick one or the other. And if you enjoy more than one, that you're somehow, quote unquote, cheating on the other. That's not reality. You don't have to be, loyal to one brand. Watch what you like. Listen to what you like.
Conrad, I 100% agree, brother. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I do want to give you some time to plug all of your stuff that you've got going on, whatever you want to plug, man. Let everybody on Brainbuster Radio know where they can find you, check you out.
Well, you can find me at savewithconrad.com. That's my real job. Hey, it's Conrad. It's my Twitter handle, but you'll see on there it says Conrad the Mortgage Guy. I am talking to you from a mortgage office right now, and we're licensed in 41 states, and we'd be delighted to help you get out of that apartment and get into a new house, or consolidate some debt, pay your house off faster, pull some cash out to send the kids to college, remodel the kitchens and bathrooms, whatever you're looking for. We can make it a reality at savewithconrad.com. And, of course, my podcasts are about to be 5 days a week. We'll start with Eric Bischoff and 83 Weeks on Monday, the Arn Show on Tuesday, What Happened When with Tony Schiavone on Wednesday, Jim Ross with Grill and JR on Thursday, and the main event every Friday is Something to Wrestle, and that's the reason I'm even talking to you, is the success of Something to Wrestle. So check out those podcasts if you haven't already. I don't know why in the world you wouldn't have, but throw me a follow on Twitter. Love to talk a little wrestling with you, answer any financial questions you have, and hope to see you at Starrcast. Tickets are on sale now for our November trip, which is November 7th through the 10th. All the action is really going down on the 8th and 9th, which is a Friday and Saturday. And all that information is over at starrcast.com. And there's 2 R's in Starrcast.
Conrad, thank you so much for doing this. I feel like this is a long time coming. When I first started doing podcasting, I always told myself, I'm going to interview this man one day. I'm going to get him on my show. So it feels really good to have you on the show, man. And I appreciate everything you've done for people who podcast. And thank you for coming on my show.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Good luck with your show. Appreciate what you're trying to do here.